I found thinking about Ruby Gillman's plot and big twist kind of muddling in my head. So I'm just gonna type my thoughts out as they come to me to see what I actually think about it. So, let's begin with Chelsea. Actually no, let's begin with the movie's marketing. Sometimes I wonder what studios are thinking with their trailers. Everyone's already talked about how the trailers for this movie really gives everything away, including Chelsea's betrayal. Hilariously, the only thing they didn't give away was that Chelsea is Nerissa, so we had 3 months for people to get really enamored with shipping the two main girls before we find out that Chelsea is like 20 years older than the main character and not even real. A fact a frankly hilarious number of people have just chosen to disregard. As it turns out, mermaids stop aging once they hit 14. I had no idea this movie was secretly an anime. But knowing that Chelsea is the villain and seeing her in the trailers in her giant form with the trident really made the movie's twist extremely obvious. It was so obvious that I thought they were going to subvert it in some way. Like mermaids aren't really as evil as the Krakens portray them to be, or Chelsea has some other motivation for her actions. Because as it is, the movie just kind of simply flips who you think would be the hero and the villain with no nuance. And I guess the obviousness of the twist made me think it was building to something else because they wouldn't really just spoil the whole story in the trailer, right? I mean, they really do just switch the expected positions of the Krakens and mermaids. Other sea monsters like Leviathan and Umibozu are still bad guys. But there's something funny about the impressions the trailer gave. When you go into the movie knowing Chelsea is going to betray Ruby, her manipulative nature becomes a lot more obvious. Like, it's already pretty obvious when she tells Ruby to get the trident that makes mermaids extremely powerful with barely an explanation as to why it's needed. But besides that, really, Chelsea being presented as unambiguously nice made it more obvious she was the bad guy than the more antagonistic relationship of the trailers, because then you can really only twist in one direction. After watching the movie, I found myself asking a question. Is it more subversive that they played Chelsea's betrayal completely straight? Like, we're not meeting the expectations of a subversion of expectations, its own subversion. I've said subversion a lot. Here's something about the whole subverting expectations thing. It's only a subversion if it's not what's expected. Look at the concept of the underdog. I think we can all acknowledge that the underdog rising to the top is the expected outcome. For a story type dependent on extremely unlikely success, actual failure is far more surprising. The ability to subvert expectations is reliant on what the audience is expecting. And in a way, I think what people were expecting from this movie, in this most recent entertainment climate we're in, was a subversion of old tropes. I mean, think about it. This is a story reversing perception of sea creatures to put Krakens as the good guys and mermaids as the bad guys. But it's still playing into that same black and white morality dynamic. But backwards, with the pretty popular girl being the unambiguous bad guy, which is yet another trope. I think that's the reason a lot of people went into this movie expecting a more nuanced look at the story, only to get subverted into the movie playing its ideas completely straight. Which you can't entirely blame the movie for, unless you just think that what the movie did go for wasn't executed well enough, which is actually a completely different story. When you talk about TV shows and movies on the internet as much as I do, you often get accused of not liking something because it didn't go the way you wanted. But Ruby Gillman is an example of something not going the way I wanted, but I still get and kind of support what it was going for. One thing you realize about this story, once you have the full thing in front of you, is that it's not about two girls from different worlds that are in conflict with each other bringing peace by working together. It's about trust and generational divides when it comes to mothers and daughters, as well as the dangers of keeping secrets and broken communication. The divide in the relationships between Grandmama, Agatha, and Ruby creates enough space for the antagonist, Nerissa, to squeeze her way in and take advantage of Ruby. No mending peace with mermaids, no enemies to friends, to lovers. Yes, I am aware of what some of you guys wanted. And to be honest, the trailers focus so much on Chelsea and Ruby that I'm not entirely surprised people thought the movie was going to be primarily about them. So I guess in a way the trailers actually did succeed in hiding what the movie is about. Whether or not you think the movie was good, or you think the movie would have been more interesting if it did something else, you've got to acknowledge, Chelsea's betrayal is exactly what this story needed. It's like how people say that if you don't tell your kids about things like, say, sex, they're going to learn it from other sources that will probably tell them something you don't want them to hear. That being said, I don't think Chelsea needed to be Nerissa herself. I mean, peer pressure is a thing. Or if this movie really is that married to the idea of subverting the Little Mermaid so much, you could just have Nerissa not pretend to be a teenager and take the form of some sort of surrogate mother for the confused and desperate Ruby to go to for information, like a reverse Ariel making a deal with Ursula. And with all that, I don't really mind the direction the story went for, even if on another level, I think the movie leaves much potential grayness in the air regarding the Krakens and their relationships to other sea monsters and Grandmama's attitude. But then there's another thing to consider when you watch the deleted scenes. One deleted storyboard is essentially an extended bonding scene between the girls. And the most interesting thing about this is the characterization of Chelsea and Ruby's friendship, where it's made very apparent to the viewer that Chelsea isn't as squeaky clean a girl as she pretends to be. And I know why it was deleted. It doesn't exactly fit with the vibe the movie is going for. But once again, it kind of makes their friendship seem genuine. Like, the fact the movie isn't trying to hide that Chelsea does bad things adds an air of honesty to their interactions over the whole, yeah, this girl being entirely nice 100% is definitely building up to something later. And then there's the scrapped storyboard where Chelsea is in fact just Nerissa's daughter and is actually trying to avenge her mom's death at the hands of Ruby's mom. So the Nerissa twist wasn't always set in stone. And honestly, I can kind of see why they cut that out too. Having your antagonist be motivated by the protagonist's mother killing her mother might be a bit much for a movie of this type, at least from the perspective of the studio. Full disclosure, I would probably love it, but I am not the movie's target audience. Okay, stick with me here. I think the movie might have been better if Chelsea was Nerissa's daughter. No, not to give Chelsea a chance at redemption, as I feel is the motivation of most of the people who suggest this idea. She can stay a bad guy if you want. But if in this story about the relationship between mothers and daughters, we use Chelsea and whatever relationship she has with the maybe or maybe not deceased Nerissa to contrast the Gillmans, it might have given more weight to the movie's actual themes and more focus to a film that I've seen a lot of people say felt unfocused. It could be an example of an actually maliciously bad relationship between parent and child, or even make her the ultimate example of a disconnect because she literally can't talk to her mom. Hell, she could have a perfect communicative relationship with her mom and they are both just bad guys about it, which is why they nearly win over the Gillmans who aren't really talking to each other. This is just an idea though, and that idea can take any form depending on how you write it. Like, I'm not gonna act like if you done this to the movie it would automatically become a huge smashing success that everyone loves. But yeah, I think those are all my thoughts on this movie. Honestly, I thought the whole movie as a whole was average. Like, the movie wasn't exceptionally mind-blowing, except for kind of the animation, especially around the Krakens and their boneless movements. But besides that, the movie has an adequately told story that the ad campaign really did zero favors. Personally, I would have done the entire plot differently, but I can't hold that against this movie. The only thing I can hold against it is how well I think it executed on the story it wanted to tell, and it was okay. And I don't give numerical scores over 10. What did you think of Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken? Tell me in the comments below, as well as what you thought of this video, and hit the like and subscribe button while you're down there so you can get more of my content and YouTube can show more people this video. Thank you and good day.